Yeah, let's do Middos.
Okay. You feel better now?
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, good. Okay. All right. We have Gimel Dalet. Both the stones of the altar and the stones of the ramp were quarried from the valley of Beit Haram, and they would dig beneath virgin soil and bring from there whole stones which had not been touched by iron. For iron renders unfit completely by touching and by being nicked by anything. If one of the stones were nicked, it is unfit, but if the rest of them are still fit, but the rest of them are still fit, and they would reface the stone twice a year, once on Pesach, once on Sukkot, and the Hekel was refinished once a year on Pesach. Rebbe says every Friday they would clean the altar with a wet cloth on account of the blood. They would not apply the coat of lime to the stones with an iron trowel, lest it touch the stones and render them unfit. For iron was created to shorten the life of man, while the altar was created to lengthen the life of man. It is not right that the shortener should be lifted up upon the lengthener. And there were rings to the north of the altar, 6 rows of rings each. Some say 4 rows of 6 rings each. For by these rings they would slaughter the offerings of the Kedoshim. The butchering area was to be north of the altar, and upon it were 8 dwarf pillars, and 8 blocks of cedar were set upon these pillars. And hooks of iron were fixed in the cedar blocks, and each block had 3 rows of hooks, on which they would hang the animals and skin them upon marble tables which stood between the dwarf pillars. The laver was located between the antechamber and the altar and was drawn toward the south. Between the antechamber and the altar were 24 amos, and there were 12 steps there. The height of each step was half an amma, and its tread was 1 amma. 1 amma, one amma, and a landing of 3 amos, and 1 amma, and a landing of 3 amos. And the uppermost step, 1 amma, and a landing of 4 amos. The Yehuda says the depths of the uppermost step were 1 amma, and a landing of 5 amos. Okay.
Okay. Pischa shel Olam. So the opening of the Ulam, Govho 40 amma v'rochbo 20 amma. As we learned before, that was the one that was 4 times as big as the other ones, because it was twice as wide and twice as high, which makes it 4 times bigger. V'chamesh malchos shel meilat hayu al gabav. So there were 5 cornices that went outside it. So the cornices basically lined the outside of the entrance to decorate it. So you see that it goes out in sort of 5 gradations to decorate the entrance. Tachtona odefes ala pesach amamizeh v'amamizeh. So so basically each cornice was an amma wide, and it would go out. So it would go out from the doorway by an amma. So each one would be one amma bigger than the previous one. So by the time you got to the top one, remember the doorway is already 20 ammas wide, and since you got 5 layers, each one widening to 1 amma on each side, so it's 2 ammas each layer. So ultimately the top cornice was 30 ammas wide. And there was a row of stones in between each one, between each beam. Again, decoration.
Right.
Okay, there were wooden beams. Areas is cypress wood, which was fixed from wall to wall in the Heichal, which for a structure like that is basically to support the structure, so that it shouldn't buckle. And there were chains of gold that were fixed into the ceiling of the ulam. And remember, the ulam is super high. It's basically like, I think it came to almost 100 ammas high by that stage. And the young Kohanim could actually climb up these chains to go and see all the crowns that were on there. Okay, so just a reference in Sefer Zechariah about the crowns that were used as decorations in the Mikdash. And they made a golden grapevine, which was by the entrance of the Heichal, umudle al gabe kolonasos, and it was also it was trained. I mean, as much as you can train a golden grapevine, but it was made to look like it was trained over those beams. Kol mishehu misnadev aleh. So people could donate a leaf. So let's say, like we have the Simcha Hall,
Right.
the Simcha Hall, like it's okay. So your son's bar mitzvah, you donate a leaf to the mikdash, and or a grape or a grape or whatever, or eshkol or a cluster. Maybe v'tzoliba. He would bring it, and they would hang his golden piece inside the mikdash. Amar Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Tzadok, Ma'asehaya v'nimnu aleh shalosh me'as kohanim. He says that they needed 300 kohanim to hold one of these chains because it was so heavy. Although again, that the Gemara explains that this is definitely guzma. Because if the chain was really that heavy, the ceiling wouldn't have been able to hold it.
Oh no, no, no.
So we've seen several times in the Mishnah that there's been there's a guzma. They exaggerate for effect just to give you like the direction of the way things are.
Right.
Okay. Pischo shel heichal, the entrance of the heichal. So now once you're in the ulam, so the ulam is that's that rectangular section. Let me just bring up that diagram again. Should have shared this earlier, but here we go. Share this guy here. All right. Can you see the picture?
Okay, got it.
Okay. So here is the ulam. This is this big rectangular thing over here. So we've been dealing with this section over here up until now. Now in Perek Dalet, we're now moving into the Kodesh. And this is the Heichal itself, the entrance of the Heichal. Okay. Govho esrim ama, again, it's 20 amos high, v'rochbo eser amos. So 20, so it's the normal size of a doorway in the Mikdash. Va'arba delasos hayulo. It had 4 doors. Now you can see those doors over here. In fact, I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you can see it better. But you can see over here that it's that you've got 4 doors set over here, right? Two on the outside, 2 on the inside.
Okay.
Okay. So there were two sets of doors for the Heichal and for the Kodesh. So the outer ones, when these ones opened, they opened inwards, so they would rest against the wall here. Okay, so remember this doorway is 10 amas wide, so each door is 5 amas. So when folded, it would cover exactly the 5 amas thickness of this wall over here. Okay, so these guys opened inwards. Okay, lekasos ovio shel kotel, which covered the width of the inner wall. And these ones also opened inwards. They would fold all the way around here. So it would be a 180-degree hinge that swung them around to the back of the wall here. So it would open up there. And the whole inside of the Kodesh was decorated with gold. It says tuach, plastered with gold. I don't know if that's derech guzma or if it literally had golden walls everywhere, or if it was just very heavily gold laden. They didn't bother with decorating this section over here behind the doors because that was going to be covered by the doors anyway. Okay. Rabbi Yehuda Amer B'socha Pesach hayu omdos. He said no. So Rabbi Yehuda has a different picture of this. He says that they both opened inwards actually, but they were in a hinged. B'socha Pesach hayu omdos ukamin itztramita hayu v'nikpalos lachorehen. I think ArtScroll might have a picture of this, but basically he's saying that each door had a hinge in the middle of the door so that it could fold and double over itself.
I don't see a picture. I don't see a picture of
that. So let me do a bit of drawing over here. Annotate. So basically, what we're talking about, I'm just gonna draw over here, is that you've got a door that's got a oops. No, wait. Draw, annotate. Draw. Is this the drawing thing? No, this is not annotation. Damn. Where's the annotation bar gone? Dear me. There it is. Okay. Draw. Okay. That's good. All right. So basically, you've got a door over here, but the door has got a hinge in the middle. Okay. So each door has got a hinge in the middle.
Right.
So that so that when you fold it, this door swings in here, and then the rest of the door swings that way. So when they're folded, you can see the doors are going to look like this and like this. So this door over here folds inwards. It's got a hinge over here,
Right.
a hinge over here, and this has got a hinge over here and a hinge over here. This is according to Rabbi Yehuda, just by the way, just to be clear. That's not the Tanakama. Rabbi Yehuda is saying that the door has a hinge over here, so that this piece over here folds into there, and this piece over here folds around here. You see that, so that it folds inside there, and therefore you don't have this part of the wall over here is still going to be decorated. Okay, that's Rabbi Yehuda's opinion over here. So each one covers 2.5 amas in the inner wall. Chatzi amma mezuzah mikan, chatzi amma mezuzah mikan, and so it's half an amma of doorpost in each place. שנאמר, ושתיים דלסוס, שתיים מוסבוס לעשוס, שתיים לדלס אחס, שתי דלסוס לאחרס. So he basically brings from the pasuk over here to learn out that the doors were shaped his way. We do not have any conclusive evidence one way or the other as to whether the doors were solid doors that opened inwards, or if they were folding doors the way Rabbi Yehuda describes.
I do have over here. I know I've seen this before. But how the doors opened up and they backed up again. That's why they didn't do the gold on the inside of the wall.
Yeah,
I do. I'm sorry, I missed the page.
Okay.
Right.
All right. So that ends today's Mishnah. Let's go back to Tamid.
Okay. You said so starting at the beginning. You said.
No, we're not starting yet. We're at the end of Tamid. Tomorrow we go back to the beginning of
Zion Bet.
So it's Tamid Zion Bet.
They came and stood on the steps of the antechamber, and the first one stood, and they blessed the nation with one blessing, except in the provinces. The Kohen announced it as three blessings, whereas in the temple they announced it as one. In the temple, the Kohen pronounced the name of God as it was written, but in the provinces they use its turn pronunciation. When the Kohen God wishes to burn the limbs of the Talmud, he would send the ramp, and the deputy was to his right. When the Kohen God ascended the midpoint of the ramp, the deputy took hold of his right hand and helped him ascend. The first Kohen handed to the Kohen Gadol the head and the leg, and the Kohen Gadol leaned on them, and then he threw them. The second Kohen Gadol handled the second Kohen handled the two forelegs of the first Kohen. The first Kohen gave them to the Kohen Gadol, and the Kohen Gadol leaned on them and threw them. The second Kohen clipped away and departed. And in this manner, they would hand to the Kohen Gadol all the remaining limbs, and they would lean on them and throw them. And then when the Kohen Gadol wishes to lean, and he leans and throws others. The Kohen Gadol comes to circle the altar. From where does he begin? From the southeast corner to the northeast, to the northwest, and to the southwest. They gave the Kohen Gadol wine to offer. The deputy would be standing on the horn with the flags in his hand, and two Kohanim would stand on the table of the fats with two trumpets of silver in their hands. They sounded the tekiah for the tekiah. They came and stood next to Ben Azar, one to his right and one to the left. The Kohen Gadol went down to pour the wine, and the deputy would wave the flag, and Ben Azar sounded the cymbals. And the Levium chanted the song. When they arrived at the end of the stanza, they sounded the tekiah, and the people prostrated themselves at every stanza of the tekiah, and at every tekiah around prostration. And this is the order of the Talmud for the service of the house of the Lord. May it be his will that it be revealed speedily in our days. Amen. And Adalad. The song that the Levim was right in the temple on the first day would say, Hashem is the whole earth of the fullness, the inhabited land of those who dwell within it. On the second day, they would say, Great is Hashem and much praise in the city of our God, month of his holiness. The third day, they would say, God stands in the time severally, in the midst of judges shall he judge. And on the fourth day, a song, a hymn for the future era, for a day that is entirely a Sabbath, a day of rest leading to everlasting life. Until Yes.
Okay, that's it.
We'll continue with Olive tomorrow.
Yes. Okay, Chrisos. Gimel Yud.
Said Rabbi Kiva, I asked Rabbi Elazar if one performs many labors on Sabbath of the same type of work and one allows his awareness, what is the ruling? He is liable to one for all of them, and for one for each one. He replied to me, he is liable for each one from a Kalvakoma, now for a menstruous woman, a prohibition, which has no numerous classifications in so many ways. Of being liable to a katos, he is liable to each one. Does it not follow that for the Sabbath, which has numerous classifications and many ways of being liable to a katos, that he should be fulfilled, he should be liable for each one? I replied to him, no. If you say this in regard to the menstruant, it is because two prohibitions are involved. For he prohibited from being intimate with her, and the menstruant is prohibited from being intimate with him. And you say the same regard to Sabbath, on which only one prohibition is involved? He replied, the case of one who inhabits with minors will prove this ruling. For they have only one prohibition, yet he is liable to each one. I replied to him, no. If you state this ruling regarding one who habitates with minors, which although there is no prohibition now, there is one later, when you state it regarding the Sabbath, neither now nor later has separate katos. He replied to me, the case of one intimate with an animal will prove it. I replied to him, indeed, the case concerning the animal is like the case of the Sabbath. If there is a doubt whether one ate chaleb, fat, or he did not eat, or even if he ate it, that there is still a doubt whether it contained the amount required for a katos, or whether it did not. If chaleb fat prohibited fat for him, and he ate one of them, but it is not known which one of them he ate, or if his wife and his sister were with him in the house, and he inadvertently cohabited with one of them, but it was not known with which one of them he inadvertently cohabitated, or it was either the Sabbath or a weekday, and he performed labor on one of them, but it is not known which day he did it, he must be a kashem tula. Just as if one ate two portions of chaleb fat and one ounce of awareness, he is liable for only one katos. And so, transgression is not known, so the transgression is not known, he brings only one asher tuli. But if there was awareness in the interim, just as he brings the katos to each one, so does he bring a asher tali for each one. Just as he ate chaleb, blood, nasa, and pickle in one period of forgetfulness, he is liable for each one. So when the transgression is not known, he must bring an asher tuli for each one. If the chaleb and nasa were before him, and he ate one of them, but it is not known which one of them he ate, or if his menstruous wife and his sisters were with him in his house, and he inadvertently cohabitated with one of them, but it is not known which one of them he inadvertently cohabitated, or if the Sabbath and Yom Kippur followed one another, and he performed labor of twilight, but it is not known which of them he performed labor, Reb Eliezer holds him liable to a katos, but Reb Eliezer exempts him. So Reb Yossi, they did not disagree that one who performed labor at twilight is exempt, but I may say that he did part of the labor today and part of it tomorrow. Concerning what did he differ? Concerning one who performed labor in the middle of the day, but is not known whether he did it on the Sabbath or Yom Kippur. And concerning one who performed labor, but is not known whether what type of labor he did. Reb Eliezer holds him liable to a katos, and Reb Yeshua exempts him, and says Reb Yeshua exempts him even from an asham tuya.
Okay. Right. Menachos. Yud Beis Aleph.
Mincha offerings, the libation offerings, which became contaminated with tuma, before they were sacrificed in a vessel, they can be redeemed. Once they were sacrificed in a vessel, they cannot be redeemed. Birds, woods, frankincense, and sacred vessels cannot be redeemed, for it only says an animal. If one says, I take upon myself to bring a mincha offering in a mechavis, and he brought it in a markshevis, or he said in a markavis shevis, and he brought it in a markavas, what is he brought? He has brought, but he has not fulfilled his obligation. If he said this is to be brought in a makshavas, and he brought it in a makshavas, and he did it in a markavas and brought it in a makshavas, it is invalid. I take upon myself to bring two esrogim in one vessel. And he brought them in two vessels. And he said, in two vessels, and he brought them in one vessel. What he has brought, he has brought, and what he has not fulfilled but he has not fulfilled his obligation. If he said these are to be brought in one vessel, and he brought them in two vessels, or he said in two vessels, and he brought them in one vessel, they are invalid. If he said, I take upon myself to bring two vessels, or two esrogim, and in one vessel, and he brought them in two vessels, and I said to him, you vowed to bring them in one vessel, and he brought them in one vessel, they're valid, and two, they are not valid. I take upon myself to bring two esrogim in two vessels, and he brought them in one vessel, and he said to him, you have vowed to bring them in two vessels. If you brought them in two vessels, they are valid. And if he placed them in one vessel, it is like two mincha offerings which are mixed together. If he said, I take upon myself to bring a liquor offering from barley, he must bring from one from wheat and flour. And if he said, I coarse flour,
Anyway, he must bring from wheat. If he says from kemach,
I'm
which is
sorry,
lower grade, then he must still bring with solet.
but he must bring one from wheat. If he said coarse flour, he must bring fine flour. Without oil and frankincense, he must bring it with oil and frankincense. Half an isaron, he must bring an isaron. And half an isaron and a half, he must bring two. Reb Shimon exempts him because he did not donate to the manner of those who donate. Okay.
Yeah.
See.
Yes, Aleph.
If one borrowed a cow and borrowed the service of his owner along with it, or hired his owner along with it, or he borrowed the service of the owner or hired him, and afterwards borrowed the cow and it died, then he is exempt, as it said in Shmos, if his owner is with him, he need not pay. But if he borrowed the cow and afterwards borrowed the service of the owner or hired him and it died, he is liable. As it is said, if his owner is not with him, he shall surely pay. If one borrowed a cow and he either borrowed it for a half a day and hired it for a half a day, or borrowed it for one day and hired it for the next day, or if he hired one and borrowed one and he died, the lender claims that the borrower had died. The borrowed one had died, and that it did die on the day it was borrowed, for that it died during the hour that it was borrowed, while the other says that it does not know, then he's liable. If one claims it was borrowed, if one claims it was the borrowed one and this one claims it was the hired one, the renter swears that the renter had died, and if this one says he does not know, and this one says he does not know, they divide.
So divide is always is when we see divide, then we know that's somchus, because somchus says when you have a safek, then you divide, but that's not the halacha. The halacha is, what's the halacha?
They divide it.
No, it's not the halacha. Somchus is not the halacha. They don't divide.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't understand what you meant. I'm sorry.
So what is the halacha when you have a safek? Safek in mamas, safek in money, huh?
It's a kula. It's a kula. It's you don't.
So
You're not
the principle there, but there's a word for this principle of
I can't think of the word. I can't think of the word.
Motzi mechavera alav haraya. The proof, the burden of proof is on the claimant.
Okay. There's another word also. All right. We are on
Yud base.
They pour for him the first cup. Rishami says he recites the benediction over the day, and then he recites the benediction over the wine. Priscilla says he recites the benediction over the wine, and then recites the benediction over the day. Then they bring the water before him, and he eats dipped lettuce before he reaches the course that is secondary to the matzah. Now they brought before him matzah, lettuce and ferocious, and cooked 2 dishes. Although, I'm sorry, and I think I skipped something. Matzah. Oh, Reb Eliezer Bezalik says the dipping is a mitzvah, and in the temple they would bring before him the body of the Pesach offering. They pour him a second cup of wine, and here the son asks of his father, and the son has not enough understanding. His father instructs him to ask, why is this not different from all our nights? On all our nights we eat chumetz and matzah, but on this night we eat only matzah. On all nights we eat other greens, but on this night only bitter herbs. On all nights we roasted, stewed, or cooked, but on this night only roasted. On this night we might eat vegetables once, but on this night we did twice. And according to the intelligence of the son, he follows instruction. It begins with the disgrace and includes the glory, and he expounds from him the Armenians taught to disgrace my father until he ends up the whole portion. So it ends the whole portion.
Okay. That's it. Yep, that's 3. And Machshin, hey Dalad.
If someone measures a cistern, whether along its depths or along its width, is included in the law of water is placed. And there are the words of Reb Tarfon. Akiva says along its depths and including the law of water is placed, but along its width it is not included in the law of water is placed. If one stretches out his hand, his foot, or reed into a cistern to ascertain whether it contains water, it is not included in the law of water is placed. To ascertain how much water it contains, and it's included in the law of water is placed. If he threw a rock into the cistern to ascertain whether it contains water, the water that splashes is not included in the water placed, and that which is on the stone is tahor. If someone beats on a hide and it was outside the water and included in the law of water is placed, if it was inside the water, it is not included in the law of water is placed. But Yehuda says even if it was inside the water, it's included in the law of water is placed, since the intention is
The intention.
And does he put out?
Yeah, since he intends
Oh,
intends to beat out the water with filth.
Josie says even if it's inside the water, it is including the water in place, since his intention is that it should merge together with the dirt.
Right.
I want to see if you were paying
Okay.
attention.
Okay, thanks for making it at the later time.
Thank you.
Have a good
Thank you
day.
so much. Have a great day. I'll see you in the morning, Mr. Shelby. Thank
Bye.
you.